Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. An Usman radiallahu anhu qala qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Man bana lillahi masjidan banallahu lahu baitan fil jannati muttafaqun alayh. Usman radiallahu anhu said, Nabi Karim says, whoever builds for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a masjid, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala build for him a house in Jannah. Right. So the building of the masjid must be solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not for name and fame. Therefore you find some people put their names on the masjid, and that is causing a doubt on their ikhlas. You understand it? So uh, it must be done solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if he builds it solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, uh, then Allah ta'ala will give him a house in Jannah, right? No matter how small the masjid that he built, no matter how small it was, but because it was done solely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is entitled to this reward. ونبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من غدا إلى المسجد أو راح أعد الله له نزله من الجنة كلما غدا أو راح متفق عليه. Nabi Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, Nabi Kareem sometimes, whoever goes in the morning to the masjid or in the evening, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepares for him his uh, preparations for a guest in Jannah. As you do a preparation for the guest, that's how Allah Ta'ala prepares for him in Jannah. Every time he goes in the morning or every time he goes in the evening. So basically what they're showing here is just that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is his host, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not deprive him of the rahmat. Rather, Allah Ta'ala will shower him with the rahmat because he goes in the morning and in the evening to the masjid. Right. ونبي موسى رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أعظم الناس أجرا في الصلاة أبعدهم للمشي والذي ينتظر الصلاة حتى يصليها مع الإمام أعظم أجرا من الذي يصلي ثم ينام متفق عليه. Narrated by Abu Musa radiallahu anhu said that Nabi Karim said, the people were the greatest of people in reward in regards to Salah will be the ones who they live the most distance, the most further of them in walking. In other words, they come from far walking. And those who await the Salah until he recites it with the Imam, there's a greater reward in the one who recites it and then he goes to sleep. Meaning the one who recites alone, right? So the second portion of the hadith, what means that the one person he waits for the Imam. After Isha, before Isha, he waits and he waits until the Imam reads, right? Even though the Imam reads it a bit late, right? Then he's going to get more reward than the one who read it awwal waqt. Even though many times awwal waqt is the mukhtar time, right? But he's going to get more reward than the one who read it awwal waqt alone and went to go sleep. You understand it? Likewise, we find you can also work from the derive from there that the one who joins a small jamaat because it's early and he misses the big jamaat, then obviously the one who waits for the big jamaat, he's going to get more reward, right? When Jabir radiallahu anhu khalatil biqa'u hawla al-masjid فأراد بنو سلمة أي ينتقلوا قرب المسجد فبلغ ذلك النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال لهم بلغني أنكم تريدون أن تنتقلوا قرب المسجد قالوا نعم يا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قد أردنا ذلك فقال يا بني سلمة دياركم تكتب آثاركم دياركم تكتب آثاركم رواه Muslim. Remember Jabir radiallahu anhu says some houses became empty around the masjid, so the Banu Salimata they intended to move close to the masjid. So that news reached Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he said to them, it reached me, the news reached me that you intended to move close to the masjid. They said, yes, O Nabi Kareem sallallahu, indeed we intended that. So he said, O Banu Salimata, I will fasten to your houses. Your footsteps are written. I will fasten to your houses or stay at your houses. Your footsteps are Ratan. The Banu Salimata, that's the one tribe, right? Or one family, right? They used to stay some distance from the masjid, and therefore, when some houses became empty, they wanted to move. And then Nabi Karim so told him, stay where you're staying, because for all the footsteps you take, you're getting reward. When Nabi Hurairah radiallahu qala qala Rasulullah sab'atun yudhilluhumullahu fi dhilli yawma la dhilla illa dhillu. And Abu Hurairah radiallahu said, Nabi Karim says, seven people, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will shade them in his shade. On the day there will be no shade except his shade. Imamun adilun, a just imam, washabun, nasha'a fi ibadatillah, and a youngster who grew up in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ورجل قلبه معلق بالمسجد إذا خرج منه حتى يعود إليه. And a man, his heart is attached to the masjid when he comes, from the time he comes out from it until he returns to it. ورجلان تحابا في الله اجتمعا عليه وتفرقا عليه. And two men who love one another for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they gather, they come together for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they separate for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَرَجُلٌ ذَكَرَ اللَّهَ خَالِيًا فَفَاضَتْ عَيْنَاهُ. And a man who remembers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in seclusion, in his tears flow. وَرَجُلٌ دَعَتْهُ إِمْرَةٌ ذَاتَ حَسَبٍ وَجَمَالٍ فَقَالَ إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهِ. And a man whom a woman who's of status, who's got a good lineage and beauty, invites him, then he said, indeed I fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ورجل تصدق بصدقة فأخفاها حتى لا تعلم شماله ما تنفق يمينه متفق عليه. And a man who makes a sadaqah, and he gives it quietly, so much so that his left hand doesn't know what his right hand has spent. So what it means here, this last portion, uh, so which shade is this? So some say it is the shade of the arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And then this last portion here is that he gives it so quietly, right? That even his left hand doesn't know what his right hand is spending. So some say it's hakikatan. Sometimes if your left hand is on this side and your right hand is doing something, here the left hand can't notice it. But most of it is same metaphorical meaning that that he does it so sincerely that only him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. وأنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم صلاة الرجل في الجماعة تضعف على صلاته في بيته وفي سوقه 25 ضعفا، وذلك أنه توضأ فأحسن الوضوء ثم خرج إلى المسجد لا يخرجه إلا الصلاة، لم يخطو خطوة إلا رفعت له بها درجة وحط عنه بها خطيئة، فإذا صلى لم تزل الملائكة تصلي عليه ما دام في مصلاه، اللهم صل عليه اللهم ارحمه، ولا يزال أحدكم في صلاة من انتظر الصلاة. وفي رواية قال إذا دخل المسجد كانت الصلاة تحبسه، وزاد في دعاء الملائكة اللهم اغفر له اللهم تب عليه ما لم يؤذي فيه ما لم يحدث فيه، متفق عليه. Narrated also from him, from Abu Hurairah said that Nabi Karim said, the salah of a man in Jamaat, right, supersedes over his salah in his house and in his bazaar by 25 times. And that is because he made wuzu and he made proper wuzu. Then he came out to the masjid and nothing took him out from his house except salah. And he did not step any one step except that a rank was raised for him because of that one step. And a sin was wiped out from him because of that one step. So when he recites Salah, then the Malaika continuously sends the du'as upon him as long as he's in his place of reciting Salah. O Allah, O Allah, send blessings upon him. O Allah, have mercy on him. And one of you will continuously be in Salah as long as he awaits Salah, right? And in another riwayat, it says when he enters the masjid and only Salah kept him back. And there's nothing else held him there in the masjid but Salah. And then at riwayat also increase in the dua of the malaika. What else other duas the malaika made? Allahumma maghfir, oh Allah forgive him, oh Allah pardon him, as long as he doesn't harm anyone, and as long as he doesn't break his wuzu. Right. So from here we understand that he's going to get a 25 times more reward when together with reading with Jamaat, he also reads in the masjid. Right. And then the other point that's mentioned here is that you don't harm. You get this du'as from the angels as long as you don't harm anyone. And how do you harm somebody? Is uh, is by obviously now not uh, so you don't in other words by any of your action or by any of your statements, right? The angels will make dua for you, and as long as you got wuzu. What we also understand from this here is that as long as you sit on that spot, then you're getting the du'as. But the moment you get up and move to another spot, then you lose the du'as. Right? Okay, leave it till me.